Hello, and welcome to The Exchange. I'm Ruby Jones. Today, we're exploring one of the most powerful productions of the season here in Colorado. From now through November 2nd, Denver Center for the Performing Arts is presenting The Happiest Man on Earth, written by Mark St. Germain and adapted from the best-selling memoir of Holocaust survivor Eddie Jaku. The play tells the remarkable story of a man who, despite enduring unthinkable tragedy, chose to live with gratitude and hope, declaring himself the happiest man on earth. Joining me is acclaimed actor Ken Tigar, who stars as Eddie Jaku. Ken has an extraordinary career on stage and screen, and his performance in this role has already earned multiple Best Actor awards. We are honored to have him here to talk about the production, his journey, and the lasting message of Eddie Jaku's story. The Happiest Man on Earth makes it sound like this is going to be a very jubilant production. It's going to be very joyful. But when I did a deep dive, it's actually more about resilience and finding happiness in times of human suffering. So, can you tell me a little bit about why you think the title is such a dichotomy from what the play is actually about?
Well, I think that it's amazing when you consider what Eddie Jaku really went through in his life, that he could end up as a happy human being. There are a lot of people who are scarred by all sorts of terrible events. I mean, trauma. We hear about trauma every day, and it's not just in the Holocaust. It's in lives all around us all the time. And I mean, sexual trauma and violence in the street. I mean, terrible things happen all the time to people. Resilience is one thing, to be able to cope with the trauma and to be able to live with the trauma, but to be able to transcend the trauma and to get over it and to get to a place where your life is meaningful and joyful and productive and gives other people power, then that is a form of happiness. And there's something really wonderful about that. And it's something that we can all learn from, I think.
That's a fantastic answer. I love the idea of transcending trauma and still finding happiness. So, you originated the role of Eddie Jaku and you performed it across several productions. So,
That's right.
what initially drew you to this story and why do you keep coming back to it?
Well, I keep coming back to it because I love the play. It's a wonderful play, and the response that we've gotten every place that we've done it has been phenomenal. The audiences are very moved by the play, and they walk out joyful. I mean, that's wonderful. So, as an actor, we love that sort of thing. Before we actually did it, when I heard that Mark had the rights to do this play, I don't know. I just knew in my heart I had to play this role. And Mark had written some other plays, a number of other plays, one of which is called Freud's Last Session, that Anthony Hopkins actually just did as a movie last year. And I'd done a number of productions of that play, and Mark had seen my work. And I just knew that I had to play this part. And I let it be known that I would be available if asked. And indeed, they did ask me to do it. And it was just, it was perfect. I, I come from a Jewish background. I don't consider myself religious in any way, but culturally, that's my heritage. Um, my family did not go through the Holocaust, although that I know of. Although I'm sure that there were people that I was related to that never made it over from Europe that died in the Holocaust. I don't feel that pain. That's not in my background. But I'm a pacifist. I believe, I really believe that people should be nice to each other and that people shouldn't hurt each other. Also, in my background, I studied German. I was lucky enough to go and spend a year in high school and lived in Berlin before the wall went up.
Oh,
It was a
wow.
long time ago. But I lived with a man, his family, who had been on the Underground Railroad getting Jews out of Germany during the war. I mean, this was a great man, and he taught me a lot. He taught me about compassion and about bravery and about getting along in the world and um, and about culture. He was a very cultivated man as well. And because of that, when I think about the Holocaust, when I hear about this play, I'm coming at it from a point of view of somebody who has studied Germany, German culture, German literature. My degrees, university degrees, are in German literature. I understand the culture, and I understand that there were good people and there are bad people. And I understand where it all how it happened, where it happened, and so because of that, I felt this need to do the play myself, and it's been a growing experience for me too. I've learned a lot about myself, about the world, about Eddie, about the Germans, about Nazism, about fascism, what it takes to be a fascist. I mean, we're not over that yet.
Right.
And and so there's a compulsion to do this play. It's a very meaningful play, not only for the audiences, but for me as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I was going to ask you about how you prepare yourself to take on this work and this production. And I think you just spelled it out for me, your experiences and the things that you have absorbed throughout your travels and your studies. Obviously, I think those would really help you prepare for such an emotionally challenging lift. And I guess I'm wondering, you are an acclaimed actor. You have performed across several different mediums. Is it always that you're drawing from your lived experiences? And is that what helps you perform when it comes to television or when it comes to roles that are emotionally challenging like this one?
Well, I think that any actor that's uh, worth his or her salt has to draw on past experiences, your own life, in order to portray something truthfully. On the other hand, you can't have lived everything. Sometimes you have to make things up, but it's still, you draw from what it would be like if you were to be that. For example, one of the very first things that I ever did when I got to Los Angeles, I was lucky enough to do a number of episodes of a show called Barney Miller. And on Barney Miller, the second episode that I did, they had me coming in and being a werewolf. And I mean, this is an episode that a lot of people have seen. I personally have never been a werewolf. Uh, on the
I
other
hope
hand,
not.
no, well, but I wouldn't tell you anyway. But you draw on your own experience, what it would be like if that were to happen. And one of the most recent things that I've done a few years ago, I had a chance to be on a wonderful television show called A Man in the High Castle, and it's a show about Nazis. The premise of the show is what would have happened if the Germans had won the Second World War. And I had a chance to play Heinrich Himmler, who was a Nazi. And of course, you draw on your own experience. I am very anti-fascist, and so obviously I don't believe in any of that agenda at all. On the other hand, I had to prepare myself to do that. And I went out and I read Mein Kampf. I mean, most people don't do that sort of thing, but I had to understand what it was that drove these people. And I don't agree with it. As Eddie says in the play about
Mm,
Hitler, I will never forgive him,
mhm,
never forgive him, but I don't hate him.
mm,
Hate, hate is destructive. Hate is destructive for the hater as well as the person being hated. That's not a good way to live a life. So you have to understand the people that you're playing, and that can only come from your own experience. and you try and get into people's lives. I think that's what actors, really good actors, do. They try and find what it is about other people that's similar to themselves that they can understand and that they can show and relate to other people.
What do you think is the takeaway when it comes to that coming of age despite trauma and despite exposure to the evils of the world?
That's
How does
really
a young person transcend in the midst of all of that in a way that they can still find happiness throughout?
that's a great question, and I really wish I knew the answer to it. I mean, if you and I could come up with the answer to that one, we could probably solve all the problems of the world. I don't know. I mean, I consider myself very, very lucky. I was born not in, well, I was born in time of war. I was born 9 months after Pearl Harbor. There's no question about where I came from. But I haven't had to live through that. Well, I lived through Vietnam, but I was old enough at that point to be able to stand up and take a stand but for young people, Eddie at the beginning of this play is 13 years old. And when Hitler comes to power, he was 13. When the war was over, he was only 25. What a teenager, what somebody coming into their adulthood and being bombarded by this kind of hate and violence um, could do, I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with teachers, people like you, people like me, to be able to talk to young people and say, this is right and this is wrong. And I'm sure that people on all across the entire political spectrum believe that. But you have to be very careful about what you teach to people. And if you teach violence, you will get violence back. We're seeing that all over the world now. We're seeing it in the Middle East. We're seeing it in Africa. We're seeing it in Asia. We're seeing it in this country. Some adult, because it's up to adults, some adult has failed to teach what is right and what is wrong.
Hmm.
And so that responsibility is on every single one of us every single day.
Well, thank you for that. And I agree with you in many ways. I always find that the theater is sort of not an escape, but it's sort of a voice, like an outer observant voice for what's happening on earth and kind of what's going on in society. And when I think about this story in particular, people need a source of happiness right now. We need to be reminded that there is joy amid pain and suffering. And so I thank you for the dedication that you have spent on learning this role and mastering this role and all of the other roles that you have been involved in. And I wonder, what is the most rewarding role that you've played?
Oh my. Well, this is certainly one of them. There's no question about that. I'm going to go back to Barney Miller again. One year, they called and they asked me to come back and do another episode, and the character was claiming to be Jesus, and he wasn't wearing a long robe and no beard and hair and none of that. It was somebody dressed like this who was in Central Park claiming to be Jesus and was causing a bit of a disturbance. So they arrest him and bring him into the police station. I mean, remember, this is a sitcom. Um, and I thought to myself, how do I do this? How everybody has a personal relationship to Jesus. Almost everybody on earth, whether you're a Christian or a non-Christian, a believer, or as I am, an atheist, everybody knows Jesus somehow, personally. And how do you touch everybody with their Jesus? And I thought, well, the only way to do it is to really study who Jesus was. And I spent the entire week, first of all, um, I stopped eating. For the entire week of production, I
Wow.
fasted. I
Wow.
started meditating all the time. And I started reading the New Testament, which is not a book that I've really read very much. And I realized, they call it the good book because it's a pretty good book. He said a lot of really very good things. And to try and get to that and to become as much as we can become that. I don't like the word holy, but that pure, that essence of life. It was an extraordinary experience. And when we finally shot it, it's one of the pieces of film that I'm actually proudest of in my life. It came out well, and it's funny. At the same time, it's funny, but yeah, I like that one. And I like this show too. And and in many ways, actually, when I played Himmler, because it's playing somebody that I really loathed in what the actual man did, but to try and find the humanity, because it would take very little for any human being to turn and become that. The door between good and evil is really a swinging door. And we could all go through it at a moment's notice if we're not very careful. So I like that one too.
My goodness, that is very poignant. Yeah, I agree with you. It would take very little.
Right.
I'm just so looking forward to seeing this production now. So,
Good.
September 19th through November 2nd, you'll be
That's
playing
right.
at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, and I cannot wait to see The Happiest Man on Earth. Thank you for the work that you've done to bring this role to life and to contribute your thoughts and your expertise in theater and in the world and in your own life to what's happening on the stage. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining The Exchange. And thank you so much to Ken Tigar for joining me and sharing his insight into this extraordinary role. You can experience his award-winning performance in The Happiest Man on Earth by Mark St. Germain, running now through November 2nd at Denver Center for the Performing Arts. For tickets and more information, visit denvercenter.org. And for more coverage of real stories, real people, and real purpose, be sure to like this video and subscribe to The Exchange. I'll see you next time.